No. And the only note I have is good. I hate men. This was so fun. This was so fun. Oh gosh. I'm not ready to talk about this book yet. Very convinced that she was just losing her mind and like, I'm crazy. Hi, hello. Coming at you from a rare sunny day this winter. How are you doing? Thank you for being here. My name is Carrie. We are doing our first monthly wrap up of 2026. And full transparency, it is the 26th of January. I do plan to continue reading. Oh my God. Wait, is it too sunny? I do plan to keep reading for the rest of the week, but I'm preparing for my trip back home. So likely my reading will be a lot of DNFs, and just because my attention span, you know the drill, most of you. So I ended on a high note and I felt like that's a great bookend. I started great, ended great. And I'm going to talk to you about what I've read so far in January. I also have so many physical books. I don't know why that ended up happening this month, but I'm so excited. Once again, very strange list. Some are recent releases. Some have been on my list for years, and I don't know why I haven't read them until now. Some are very odd. Some are very short. Some are very long. So yeah, I'm just excited to talk to you. And once again, the sun and shadows, they're just going to be doing their thing. Respectfully, I don't know what to do, but I need to get some vitamin D, so I'm sitting in the sun. All right, let's just dive right in. Okay, January. Again, full transparency. Technically, I read this book at the end of December. I think I might have actually finished the duology on my birthday, too. So it is actually a December read. Time. What is time, right? Yes, I can finally talk about it. A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. I got this from Book of the Month for February 2022. This is before I had read any other Rebecca Ross. I have the weirdest experience with this book because I remember when I got it, I started to read it and I didn't like the first chapter. And so I DNF'd it. I was like, you know what? It's not hitting right now. I will return to it later. And so for 3 years, whenever I thought about picking this back up, I had this very vivid memory of the first chapter, which was completely incorrect. I weirdly remember the chapter when I first picked it up. I remember it being like, this guy gets in a boat and he's trying to cross what is essentially like the river Styx or whatever, like into the underworld, into the afterlife. And once he got to the place, everybody was like, he was dealing with ghosts and things like that. Wrong. All wrong. I don't know where that was coming from, but that's that's what I thought this book was about. First chapter, he does get in a boat, but not to the afterlife. So that's just like a weird hang up that I had for 3 years. That was completely imagined by me. So thank you, brain. Cool. So A River Enchanted. Yes. Yum. Delicious. This reminds me, if you like her style of writing that you saw in A Wild Reverence, if you haven't read A Wild Reverence, if you like Juliette Marie, which I've said many times, a very like lost in time, this just like ancient epic feeling fantasy. Here you go. So we are mainly following our main character named Jack, who has been summoned home. He's been away for a very long time studying music on the mainland, and he is from this very strange island called Cadence that is to the mainlanders like a land of myth and lore. But he decides to return home and he ends up getting swept up in so many things. There are young girls that are being kidnapped or going missing. There are gods and magic, and one side of the island is at war with each other. There's his childhood nemesis that he reconnects with. There's a mystery surrounding his birth. There's a lot of, he's a musician, he's a bard, so there's a lot of like music and storytelling and the magic that comes from that. I really, really loved A River Enchanted, the first book. I think the second book pacing was just a little bit different for me. For some reason, I found that I wasn't eating it up. Like this, I think I read in 2 days. The second one took me significantly longer. I wasn't quite as drawn in, I think because the way that she writes, similar to like Juliette Marie, it's a little bit slower. Like she allows a lot of time to pass, instead of like everything has to be done right now. But I did really like this. This is very character driven, which I love. You really fall in love with each character and they are very distinct and they just are complicated people. The writing was beautiful. Like I said, it's all about like music and magic and storytelling and gods and power. Yeah, I'm mad at myself that I didn't read it earlier, but I'm also really happy that I feel like I needed to start the year with a good book, and so this really hit the spot and I think signifies that this is going to be a good reading year. I'm hoping. This felt a little different from Divine Rivals, I think because Divine Rivals takes place in a very like 1940s feeling world. This is very clearly like, it just feels old and they're so tied to nature and it's just, I don't know, I truly was transported by this book and I'm very happy to have read it. So that is Rebecca Ross, A River Enchanted and a Fire Unknown. Sorry. Thank you, Rebecca. After that, we have another physical that I have marked up. I made a video about it. I really am gonna try and make this a monthly or like a bi-monthly thing. I did a live reaction trying to solve The Housemaid. It was so fun. I'm already planning my next thriller that I'm gonna read. Okay, The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. I felt challenged by the universe because I live in Korea. This has been pushed so hard. The advertising around my city for this movie is diabolical. And so everywhere I turned, I just had these women looking at me, challenging me to solve the crime. And so I rose to the challenge. Did I solve it before the ending? You can watch my video to find out. The Housemaid, Freida McFadden. I know that there are lovers and haters of Freida McFadden. I went in knowing nothing. As I said in the video that I made about this, I have one friend who reads her books and like talks to me about it. Other than that, I don't know anybody else. So I went into it with a pretty open heart, open mind. I don't know if it's just because I read a lot of thrillers or what, but this seemed pretty obvious. It didn't feel very thrilling or exciting or new. I thought that the cast was also very small. I tend to like thrillers that have quite a few more people, so you genuinely wonder who done it. This just felt a little silly. There were quite a few plot holes. I, full disclaimer, know nothing about this, but apparently there is talk of this being very similar to another book that came out previously called The Last Mrs. Parrish. I haven't read that one, but yeah, I can see why people would use these to get yourself out of a reading slump. Like, it was very easily digestible, but I would say strongly meh. It was fun to read it with you guys, though. This is about a girl who really needs a job. She applies to be a housemaid, and for reasons we will find out, she's pretty sure she's not going to get the job. So when she's hired, she's ecstatic, and she throws herself into the work. But the woman who hired her, the mom, is pretty insufferable, borderline like emotionally and if not physically abusive. And as her actions get more and more absurd, we start to wonder if the housemaid should be fearing for her life. And it gets more and more complicated from there. Let's just say she has to live in an attic that has a lock only from the outside of the door. There you go. You can watch my full reaction. I truly read this not thinking it was gonna blow me away, but there we have it. The Housemaid by Freida McFadden, my first McFadden thriller for ya. Next up, we have a recent release that was highly anticipated. This is an Arcane Inheritance. This was pitched as being enemies to lovers or academic rivals to lovers, dark academia, there are secret societies, it's a magical university, etc. I was very excited for this. I was pretty let down, unfortunately. This follows our main girl who has received a full ride scholarship to this Ivy League school called Warren University. She is a freshman, but she's old enough to be a senior, I think, just because she did not have the funds to go to school, so she has been working and stuff. And so when she got this acceptance and this full ride scholarship, it was like this wonderful opportunity, right? And so she is throwing herself into work. I believe she is studying, she wants to be a lawyer, and she has this like insufferable boy in one of her political science classes, and the world just keeps throwing them together as much as she tries to avoid him, right? And what's weird is the more that she stays on campus, the more that she starts to have these really strange hallucinations. She will be walking home from the library and then she will just look up and realize that she is miles away from campus. She feels like she's in a bubble, like she can't see, there's just darkness all around. Then she starts to get like maybe messages from herself, from someone, I don't know. We don't know. And that's really what kept me reading, is just I wanted to figure out the mystery. She starts to see messages like written on her hand, or sometimes she sees a tattoo in a mirror and then like it's gone, and really interesting. And so this was kind of pitched as like Babel meets Get Out. According to my notes, things that people could love or hate about this book. The writing, especially in the first, I would say 60%. It randomly disappears at the end of the book, but her writing style in the first bit is very similar to Olivia Blake, in which she will go off on a tangent about something, or she will describe something for a really long time. And as you'll, like in another book in this month, I talk about that in like a positive way. In this book, it felt a little fillery, to be honest. It didn't really add to the story, and I felt like, especially because I wasn't drawn in by anything else and I was just really wanting to figure out what happened at the end, I felt like she was just kind of wasting my time, and I was like, solve the mystery, girl. I don't want to hear about the amount of times I had to hear about a cinnamon coffee. Too much for me. I wrote that I didn't really understand what was going on, but I liked the banter between our two main characters. I will give her that. The dialogue between our two main characters was good, but it ended up being like those conversations were the highlight of the book. And then if there was any kind of action, like, oh, we need to break into this house, or I need to, I don't know, fight this person, that would happen in the blink of an eye. There was like build up, like, oh, we gotta study, oh, I gotta like research this thing so that I can do a seance. And so we have like weeks of her just sitting in the library and them like talking over their cinnamon coffees about this seance. And then the seance happens in like a page. So it was the pacing was very bizarre to me. I will say it had me curious enough to continue, and the ending was intriguing. Yeah, it's a standalone. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. And my very last complaint, and this is so bizarre to me because this character, it was literally on the page for like 1 second. And there was a lot of that, like introducing people and like putting a lot of work into describing them, and then they are never seen again. Our main girl goes to this house party and she meets all of these people and they introduce themselves. They're like in a circle. And one guy's like, hi, my name is Joe, whatever. And then this redheaded girl introduces herself and she's like, hi, my name is Ashley or something, but you can call me Red. No, I posted about this on Instagram. I got so many responses backing me up. That is not something an actual redheaded person would ever ask you to call them. Unless they are into like the enemies to lovers thing and like they enjoy their crush low-key bullying them by calling them Red. Why would you add that detail? For a character that is never on the page again, for her to like, her only line is to be like, I want you to call me Red. And then for like the next paragraph, Red says this, Red says that. Oh my, I have so much trauma with like creepy ass old men calling me Red out of nowhere. Like at the checkout counter of the grocery store, my substitute bus driver for middle school. Like it's a creepy thing. It's a gross thing. They just think it's okay because our hair is so in your face to like just out of the blue make weird comments. Like I've never spoken to this man in my life and he's like, hey Red, how you doing? Oh my god, I hate it. So I read that and I was just like, does she have a redheaded friend? Has she like it? Yeah, I don't know, it was just the most bizarre thing I've ever read. Like, why? No. So just a PSA, authors, please, a true redheaded person who has, had a childhood of having creepy old people call you Carrot Top and Red and stuff out of the blue, a real redheaded character would never. All right. So yeah, in Arcane Inheritance, I think some people could like it. It was just a little too maybe dreamy for me. We were probably 70% of the way through before we really even understood kind of what the goal was of this book. I like, who is our enemy? Who are we trying to take down? Like, how does magic work? How do ghosts work? Like, it was, I don't know. We were kind of just like meandering, and I didn't really get where we were going. Again, I think the ending was interesting, but by that point I was just sort of like, can we get to the end? But again, the banter was good. I visually, weirdly, it really took place to me on my own campus because my university library was also haunted. So I could very easily picture it. It just didn't pack the punch that I wanted it to. It wasn't quite academia enough, and it wasn't quite magical enough, and it wasn't quite mysterious enough. And yeah, it was lacking some pizzazz, but there you go. Give it a try. An Arcane Inheritance. Next up, another physical book. We Who Will Die. Okay, I already talked about this in my most anticipated reads of 2026 because this is technically coming out in February or January. Either way, this is supposed to be like vampires meets gladiators. Okay. I was kind of thinking it could go either way. I thought this could be hilariously bad or this could be really good. And I usually avoid reviews and spoilers because I don't tend to scroll too much on my book social media, but it just so happened that I saw a bunch of people talking about how this book reminded them why they loved romantasy and like, oh my god, this was so amazing, life-changing, couldn't put this down. So I kind of went into this being like, oh, this could be good. No. We Who Will Die, we are following a girl who has two brothers. One is very sick, needs a lot of expensive medicine to help with his lung infection, basically. Ideally, they would move to the north where it is sunny and warm and dry and perfect climate to help him recover from his illness, right? She doesn't have the money to do that yet, though, so she is just kind of hustling to make enough money to save up to move her family to safety. But she starts to get real frustrated when she starts going to all the apothecaries in town, and they are mysteriously all sold out of the medicine that her brother needs to live. And who is buying up all that medicine? A vampire. Because this vampire wants her to enter into this like gladiator-esque competition so that she can be brought into the elite forces that like guard the emperor, and then he wants her to kill the emperor for him. She needs to survive the arena, save my brothers, kill the emperor. Okay? She, surprise, surprise, says yes because she doesn't want her brother to die. Weirdly enough, though, she has like a friend of a friend, someone that she's known for her whole life, that is like, I will marry you. I have enough money. We can do all the things you desire. We can move somewhere safe. I can take care of your brothers. Everything will be fine. All you need to do is marry me. And she is like, no, I will do anything to save my brother except marry you. And so instead she joins a plot to kill the emperor when she could have just married this dude. Like, I was like, this girl does not have her head on straight. And so yeah, she enters into this like gladiator-esque competition. In the meantime, trying to find out, why do we need to kill the emperor other than like he's a piece of shit vampire guy, and also like uncovering some secrets of her past, things like that. It just really wasn't good. Like, I had zero fun. It was so Tamlin and Rhysand coded. You like immediately knew when people walked on the page, you immediately knew like what their role was going to be. The battles weren't interesting. The world was not explained. There are vampires, there are mortals with magic. There's a hierarchy within the magic. I really just didn't care and I didn't get it, and it was just a little bit too, like I said, like a Tamlin Rhysand coded situation. Yeah, I literally got nothing out of it. Did I even write anything for my notes? Gladiator vampire that gave me nothing. Oh my god, I will do anything to help my sick brother except for marry a guy who has a plan to move us to safety and help us. There it is. We Who Will Die. If you enjoyed this, let me know down below, like, what did you like about it? What did I miss? Because some people said that, like, this renewed their faith in romantasy, and I just can't imagine that. It also was very claustrophobic because everything takes place in these like tunnels underneath what I assume is like the Colosseum. It was just like we were underground all the time. Anyway, enough of that. We Who Will Die. I will not be continuing the series. There you go. And then after that, I knew I needed to switch it up. I needed to read something that wasn't gladiator vampires. And so in a lot of people's wrap-ups for 2025, they were talking about this book that I've seen the cover over and over and over again, and the title is just, it drew me in. Enough people had gone into it being like, I thought this was going to be silly, and then I actually really enjoyed it, that I was like, that I would love to be pleasantly surprised. And that book is Sky Daddy. This is about a woman who, have you ever seen those shows on like TLC that's like, I'm in love with a roller coaster? And it's like a woman who is romantically and sexually attracted to like a roller coaster. You heard of those? Anyway, that's our main girl, except she is attracted to airplanes. Her goal in life is to die in a plane crash because that would happen because as she's riding on the plane will recognize her as its soulmate and will want to like become one with her and thus crash and like they become one. Okay? I went into this book knowing this, okay? As someone who is fascinated, not in the same way as our main character, but I'm fascinated by airplanes. I am an anxious flyer. I fly a lot. I'm just like, if there is a plane flying over my head, I am aware of it. I felt oddly connected to this character, but also she was truly like another level. I ended up devouring the first probably 60% of this book. I got quite bored by like the second third of it, but I finished it. I liked how it ended. This is really about like people who are lonely. Yeah, just like literally every character was just lonely and like dealing with things in a different toxic way. I wouldn't read it again, but I, like I said, devoured the first 60% and it made me think. That's for sure. I didn't cry. I wasn't super attached to any of the characters, but if you're looking for just like a little bit of weird girl lit fic with a lot of, don't read it before you're taking a flight, I will say. But yeah, it wasn't a waste of my time. It wasn't necessarily my style, but hey, it kind of rattled me out of a reading slump. That is Sky Daddy. Next up, I read A Once and Future Queen. I had seen a lot of people talking about this recently, and I decided to pick it up, as one does. My library holds, oh my god, February is going to be so insane because every book I want to read is available soon currently. So January was kind of, that's why I was reading a lot of physical books, is because my library holds were just like sitting there. They're all going to come in February. So, yeah, I was kind of like picking up anything I could get my hands on. And so, hold on, let's rewind. Most people have seen this cover, right? Which could be anything. I don't really know what I could be going into with this cover. But I saw, the reason how this book even got on my radar is I saw somebody talking about an alternate cover that they saw of it. I don't think this was posted by the author or any, I don't know where this person found the alternate cover. People were kind of complaining that it looked a little AI created. If I can find it, I will put it up here. But it was essentially a classic fantasy looking cover, but our main girl had running shoes on, like modern day Nikes or something like that. And I was like, what are those? Like, what is this book? Why is our princess wearing Nikes? I must find out. Turns out this is a time travel King Arthur story. Gonna be real, this wasn't my style. This has nothing to do with the actual writing and the actual book. It just didn't hit. I could tell it was a taste thing. This wasn't going to hit for me personally, even though I do love King Arthur retellings. This is about a girl who was living in the UK, present day. She works at her mom and dad's like bed and breakfast, and she's pretty lonely. You know, she doesn't have that many friends. She recently lost her boyfriend, who was really like the only person that she really connected with. He passed away tragically, so she's still dealing with that grief, but she really doesn't have anyone outside of her parents that, even though she's never moved in her life and she lives in a small town, like just nobody seems to connect with her. It's almost as if they like don't remember her sometimes. And that's when one day this man walks into their bed and breakfast and is like, hey girl, it's time. Basically, she is Guinevere, King Arthur's wife, but somebody tried to kill her and her wounds were so serious that Merlin decided the only way to save her life was to like restart her life in the future. So she became a baby again and grew, and now that she is the same age that she should have been when she was murdered, he's gonna bring her back to the correct time. And she is like already married to Arthur, like she's just being plopped in the middle of the King Arthur myth, and they need her to go back there and recover her memories because the person that murdered her is some crazy witch, and they think that she murdered Guinevere because Guinevere knew some kind of secret that was going to save the world. Okay, I'm not explaining this very well. It was not to my taste. I think it was like funny. I could see a lot of people liking it. I just didn't like that mixture of modern day in the King Arthur setting. There were a lot of like time travel things that just didn't make sense to me. I really like time travel books, but I like them when they make sense. And there were so many things where like she could bring, like Merlin thought she was going to be bored, so he brought like a ton of books back with him. So she has like a bookshelf of like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. And so her and Arthur bond over Lord of the Rings, and she goes running every day with Lancelot in her Nikes. Why did she come back as a baby? Like I was too hung up on like the world building time travel aspect of it to really get into the story. I don't know if that sounds intriguing to you. Like, again, truly on a taste level, it just wasn't for me, but a lot of people really enjoyed it. And there were definitely points that were funny. Like, I thought that Lancelot was quite funny. I thought that Arthur was a pain in the ass. Sorry. And you kind of realize why he was, but yeah, it was just a lot of time travel questions I had were not answered. I got hung up on it. What can I say? So that is a Once and Future Queen. If you're looking for like a new spin on the King Arthur tale, it's got all the characters, but yeah, just not for me. Not for me, not today. After that, really quickly, one that I didn't finish, but I enjoyed, I'm glad that I tried starting to read it. It was just a little bit too long for me. For some reason, I picked up The Hearth and the Eagle. This is one of those situations where past me put a book on hold. 20 weeks later, I don't remember why. This book was written in the 40s, and it is about a few generations of women who are living in like colonial Massachusetts. They are plucked from their lives in England. They come over on the ships. They find out that Salem sucks, and they try to find a different place to settle and live in. It's really about just these women whose lives are like thrown around by irresponsible men. And they really like lock in and try to make the best of it. And like, it's always the women who are saving the day, basically. It was interesting to read about the Puritans who came over, especially because our family, the people that we are following, they are not religious at all. So they are very much outsiders in terms of like the Puritans being cuckoo. So they can kind of look at this colonization effort from a different lens, even though they are participating in it. And I just kind of enjoy reading about that. How do you survive a winter without any supplies and things like that? How do you like start a new life out of nothing? I liked the writing. I liked a lot of the characters. It just like wasn't quite entertaining enough to make me read another, I think it's a 400-page book. I got about 200 something pages in and I was like, okay, I've seen enough. I think past me wanted to read this author, but a different book. So I think I'm supposed to read a different book by her. I'm going to go back and look at what else she's written. I think The Hearth and the Eagle was just the only book that was at my library, and so I put it on hold. It is funny to read books by women written in the 40s, and they will say things that are still just so true today. Like, the struggles of women really haven't changed a whole lot, even from like the 1600s. So that was interesting to see, but it wasn't a book that's going to really stand out in my mind forever. But like I said, interesting to read. And I always want to point this out. I don't know if like we have changed how we talk about the Puritans in American schools. But when I was growing up, Americans were taught that the Puritans came over to the Americas because they wanted religious freedom. And like, that's really what we always thought was like, wow, these trailblazers, they just wanted freedom. Like freedom of religion is like a huge part of like the founding myth of America, right? If you read anything from, for example, the British point of view, the Puritans didn't want religious freedom. They wanted religious control. They were pissed that their like really, really strict views of Christianity, their puritanical offshoot of Christianity, they were pissed that those rules weren't being made into actual enforceable laws. And so they came to America where they could establish a brand new society that had these puritanical laws in place. So there has never been like a separation of church and state in America because we were founded by the Puritans who wanted complete control. We have been a Christian nationalist society since day one, baby, since day -1. So yeah, it was interesting to read about just their shenanigans as usual. So that is The Hearth and the Eagle, a really random pick. Like I said, I was grabbing anything at this point. Really enjoyed the writing style. The story just didn't pull me in quite enough, but there you go. Next up, we reach one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and it didn't let me down, guys. I'm so excited to tell you about The Swan's Daughter. This is a standalone. This is a fantasy. This is what I was talking about with the Arcane Inheritance, where I didn't like how overly detailed that author was, but in A Swan's Daughter, that's the actual strength of the book. So I don't think everyone will love this book, but I did. So this is very much like a grim fairy tale kind of vibe. We first meet our mother of the story, and she is a veritas swan, which is this mythical creature that is both a beautiful woman and she can turn into a swan. They are cursed where when they fall in love, they basically sign their life away. When they fall in love, they suddenly have like a collar on their neck and a key, and whoever has that key can control whether or not they can turn into a swan or a woman, etc. Like can essentially trap them in whatever body they want. And of course she falls in love with a evil warlock who literally like uses magic to feed her hope for breakfast every morning so that she doesn't die, because they live for hundreds and hundreds of years. She knows that she's stuck in this miserable controlling marriage, and so the only thing keeping her going is that he sprinkles hope on her cereal every morning. Like, not a good situation, okay? Eventually they have daughters who are also veritas swans. They have 7 daughters, and these swans, their magical power is that when they sing, anyone who hears it, they can then compel that person to speak the truth. Our warlock sets up all of his daughters with really advantageous marriages, and they use their power to end up like toppling kingdoms and winning wars and, you know, conquering and just being these like powerful, stunning women. Except for our youngest daughter, who for some reason her song is like really ugly and disturbing. She doesn't seem to have like the wings and the things that she needs to be like on par with her sisters. So her father finds a different use for her, which is a human sacrifice to make himself immortal. When she learns this, she's like, oh hell no, that I draw the line. Okay, I know daddy isn't perfect, but like this is too much. She runs away and runs to the only place where she can be safe, where her father can't chase her, which is the royal palace that has a ward where her father, the like warlock of the kingdom, cannot come in. It just so happens that when she arrives, they are starting a like bachelor-esque competition, a very like selection-esque competition to find our royal prince a bride. For reasons we will find out, his bride, whoever he chooses, is also likely going to try to kill him. So instead of our main girl joining the competition as a competitor, as a bride, she instead enlists herself as kind of his advisor because she has the ability to get people to tell the truth. And so she can kind of figure out which girl is actually in love with him and which girl just wants to kill him and get his throne. Okay, so he is protecting her secret and hiding her from her father. She is protecting him from these bloodthirsty women. It's cute, okay? Loved the side characters, didn't give a shit about the prince, I will say. And the story was fine. Like I said, it felt very grim fairy tale. Like, it was very dark, it was very bloody, everyone's trying to kill each other all the time, but like in a loving way. I don't know how to explain that. What I really liked is the writing style. It was so over the top whimsical. I mentioned this in my anticipated reads, but for example, like, she can't just sit down at a desk. She has to sit down at a desk that is covered with, and then we get like 2 pages listing every like random bit and bob on the desk. It's a lot. That's why I think this isn't gonna hit for everybody, but for me, I felt like my imagination was being challenged, and like thinking of how do you describe things in so many different colors? How do you know, I just felt like this was really whimsical, and I personally had a good time. I don't go in there if you want like a gorgeous romantasy, because the relationship was just like meh. It was more like, instead of falling in love, they were like falling in friend, and that's fine. I did think that the side characters made up for it. Yeah, I had a really great time. I really enjoyed it. So that is The Swan's Daughter. Okay, next up, I read a book that was recommended by so many people I trust, and the only note I have is good. I hate men. That is Blood on Her Tongue. This is a gothic vampire horror novel. This is icky. There's a lot of like really gross descriptive scenes, so just go in knowing that. I actually really liked this. I think that it dragged a teeny bit. Like, once you figured everything out, once you realized where it was going, I was sort of like, okay. But I thoroughly enjoyed reading it all. We essentially follow our main girl, who is called back to her sister's home because her twin sister is apparently dying. Her sister has known to have gone through what we think is like postpartum depression and things like that before, so we're very concerned. It seems like this, though, is different and much more serious, and her husband basically in the letter is like, you better get here quick before she dies. Like, this is it. And our main character has been a bit concerned for a while based on the letters that she has been getting from her sister that are more and more manic, and she seems to be really obsessed with this woman that she found in the bog, like a bog body basically. They don't know when she died or how she died, but this is just this woman who is washed up, who they found when they were draining the bog. And isn't that weird that she seems to have been tied up and like pinned down into the ground, and like rocks were stuffed in her mouth, and like her canine teeth are filed off? That's weird. And all the locals are like, why don't we put her back in the bog? Of course we don't listen. Of course we need to examine her. And of course, maybe as we're examining her, maybe I get a little cut and some blood of mine drips in her mouth, and then all of a sudden I start to be haunted by this bog woman, and I'm losing my mind, and I'm really thirsty, but not for water. You see where this could be going? So yeah, we follow her as she deals with her sister maybe becoming a vampire. And yeah, it's just sort of about like the love of sisters, probably definitely the patriarchy. And yeah, I just kind of had a good time. It took a lot of turns that I didn't think it was going to. And yeah, I don't think it would be a favorite, but it certainly held my attention the whole time. It felt pretty new. I've read a lot of these like gothic vampire stories. Like, I read Hearthstone last year, and I'm trying to think of what was the other one I read that was just kind of boring. I've just been kind of bored by a lot of vampire stories recently, and this one felt different. And I love reading letters, like when you're told the story through, you have the current events unfolding, but then you also get flashbacks via journal entries and letters, and I really enjoyed that. So there it is, Blood on Her Tongue. If you have now heard about it for the 5th or 6th time, maybe this is a sign to pick it up. But yeah, really gory, gruesome, I mean bloody, surprise. That is Blood on Her Tongue. After that, I read a climate thriller, I think they're called. Is that maybe the genre? It's called The Great Transition. I was intrigued by this, but I wasn't satisfied by it, let's just say. This is a novel that takes place well after the world has kind of reached its turning point. It's told through a lot of flashbacks, so we get the world building slowly throughout the novel, but we're essentially all living in Greenland, of all places, right now, because all of humanity has been moved to live closer to the poles in order to let the world kind of heal without human. I don't know. Some of this scientifically doesn't track, but that's what's happening. It seems like the world has reached a kind of peaceful stage. Like we have all agreed to let the world heal. We've all kind of joined together. We've even got like professional sports teams again, and like we've got TV, and we're all fine. What happens when there's a parade celebrating the first day? It's been 16 years since we have had our first zero emissions day worldwide. What happens when at that parade, in many different places across the globe, heads of large corporations are assassinated? And we learn more about this rebel group that is essentially really pissed that the people who destroyed the planet are still somehow at the top, right? Like all of these oil executives are now the head of like the Clean Air Act, and like, yay, oh my God. But like, you ruined the planet in the first place and still benefited from us. Should they be put to death? Yeah, we basically follow a young girl and her dad as they try to find their mom who has gone missing. And as we go through the novel, we suspect more and more that she is the head of, if not a huge part of, this quote unquote terrorist organization. Things I liked about it, I always love the kind of imagining of how we could have a world. A lot of this takes place in New York. New York is just constantly getting hit by these massive hurricanes. What do we do about that? How do we evacuate people? What do we do with the infrastructure that is there? Like creating seawalls and things like that. I liked the descriptions of like, how is life now? But in terms of the questions that they raised, and like certain things that were put in there, like the main girl has this very strange eating disorder. I felt like things weren't wrapped up. Questions weren't quite answered. They brought up a lot of interesting questions, especially about like revolution and who deserves to benefit, and even if we clean up the world, if we don't actually change on a societal level, we're just going to keep repeating things. It talked a lot about like mutual aid and things like that, and yeah, just how we need to change the structure of our society in order to genuinely survive as a species. So I liked a lot of it, but it left me feeling very unsatisfied, I would say. It exists, and if you're interested, looking for another kind of climate change thriller, that is called The Great Transition. The next book, I'm gonna sound crazy because I genuinely cannot describe this book, and I went into it knowing that because I saw a review of it and the person said, I genuinely cannot explain this book and it's better if you go in knowing nothing. I say the same to you. This is called Gliff by Ali Smith. What an odd little book. This was pretty short, I believe. We start off with siblings. We never know their ages. It was very confusing because both of them talk quite maturely. We know that the younger sister is supposed to be young and like very just intelligent and wise for her age, but it was just really hard to place their ages. Anyway, their aunt is very sick somehow, and so their mom goes to take their aunt's place at work, and the kids can't stay with her, so she has her boyfriend take them back home. But when they get home, there's this really strange red circle painted around their house, and for reasons unknown to them, they gotta leave. The boyfriend like packs them up in the van. He's like, okay, grab everything from the house, we're leaving, and drops them off in this abandoned house far away. And he's like, I will be right back. He takes them to the grocery store. They buy enough canned food. He's like, I'm probably only gonna be gone for like 3 days. Let's buy enough food for a week, just in case. You stay here. There's no water, there's no electricity. This is literally an abandoned, nasty house. He's like, I will be back. Look after your sister. See you very soon once I settle things. He never comes back. As they are exploring the neighborhood that they live in, we start to see other circles of red painted around things. We start to find other people who are seemingly homeless or, living off the grid in a way. We learn that there is a very serious grid that everyone should be living on. It's you can tell that it is like this dystopian, strange society, but you get nothing. You get no details. It's basically we're just following these two siblings as they live in this home and there are like horses in the back that they visit sometimes. I don't want to give you any more than that. I actually really enjoyed it. This is supposed to be part of not a duology, but I believe there's supposed to be like a companion novel to this coming out next year, maybe. I don't know why, but it scratched a really interesting part of my brain that I liked. I don't think everyone would like it though. You really had to be okay with reading and understanding nothing. In my notes, I don't want to give too much, but let's just say it's about a world in which everybody is on a database, and what happens if you aren't a part of that database? What happens if you want to live a slightly alternative life? What if you want to be, what if you don't want your kid to be an iPad baby? What if you want them to read board picture books, Yeah, I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. It was a lot of like defining words, and because it was through the eyes of these two young-ish people, the way that they saw things and described things was really fun. Yeah, it really is an indescribable book that you should go into knowing nothing, and you will come out knowing nothing as well. So that is Gliff. Personally, really loved it. Can't wait to see what the companion novel could be. That is Gliff. After that, I finally found time to read House of Splinters. I actually bought this when I was in Edinburgh from Type Wrong Books. Instead of typewriter, it's type wronger, I think it is. So I really like this author, Laura Purcell. She wrote The Silent Companions, which I've mentioned before as being one of the few books that actually had jump scares that scared me. It's like this creepy gothic novel about a woman who is widowed, and she moves into this house, and there are all these like creepy painted figurines that are like life-size, and they just show up everywhere. I really enjoyed that book. And so I picked up House of Splinters knowing nothing, knowing simply that it was by an author whose work I have previously enjoyed. And the dedication page was for the readers of Silent Companions with heartfelt thanks. And I was like, okay, that's me. Like, thank you. As I start reading this, I'm like, am I having deja vu? Am I going insane? What I didn't realize is this is actually a prequel to The Silent Companions. So my memory is weak, as you know. I remember absolutely bare bones about The Silent Companions. So to me, this book felt a little bit like I was just rereading The Silent Companions, but I actually really liked this. We are following a family in which like the patriarch, I guess, has passed away, and the husband of this family is the heir to like his ancestral seat. It takes place in the UK. His dad is like a lord or a earl or something. So he has like a big ancestral home, and then he's kind of like in charge of this village, right? So they need to move there to do his duty as a land owning individual in the UK. So he takes his wife and his son out of like high society London, moves them there to this like decrepit old home called The Bridge. And it is creepy and weird. His wife is trying her damnedest to make this a livable home. She had a really weird experience. She's been to The Bridge once before when she gave birth, because like every baby has to be born at this castle. She remembers being like really haunted and scared, and everyone kind of knocked that as like, oh, she's, just had her first child, women get crazy, but she just can't shake it. And when her son starts to see things and get oddly attached to these painted life-size characters in the house, she gets more and more freaked out. And then when we get more human visitors to the house, things just fall apart really fast. So I actually really liked this. I genuinely had such a good time. It just wasn't super different from Silent Companions. But if you are looking for a creepy gothic novel, this hits. Either read this or read Silent Companions, both of them really great. I think I liked this one. I really liked the mom, wife, main character woman in this. She was tough, even though she was very convinced that she was just losing her mind and like, I'm crazy. She still like stood up for herself, and yeah, she was badass. And the jump scares weren't quite as scary. They were still there for sure, but yeah, I had a really good time. House of Splinters, not mad at all that I got this home from Edinburgh with me. That is by Laura Purcell, writer of Silent Companions. Really quickly, in one night, right before bed, which was a horrible decision, I read Small Boat. This has been on my list for a very long time. I just kind of needed to be in the right headspace for it. Never gonna be in the right headspace for it. If you're like me, waiting, there's never a time. Small Boat is based off of a true story where there was a case of refugees trying to get from France to the UK, and their little boat, if you can call it that, like essentially a raft, broke, capsized, and nearly 30 people died. The French Coast Guard knew, they received many calls about like, our boat is sinking, we need help, but they were close enough to like English waters that like, oh, they're the English Coast Guard's problem, but the English Coast Guard never came to get it. Was just like a horrible situation where literally we knew that people were drowning for hours and no one sent help. And so the book consists of two POVs. Mainly, our main POV is the French Coast Guard, who is at the receiving end of these phone calls, and she's being interrogated by the police to figure out why she didn't give a shit. Like, why did she lie? She said help is on the way, but help wasn't on the way. Why didn't she make things a lot more urgent? Why was there a boat that could have saved them and she told them like, don't bother, they're gonna be in English waters soon, you know? It was so hard to read because her argument is that her job is to be impartial. Her job is to not care. If a billionaire's yacht is sinking, she should give him the same amount of care as like a boat full of 50 men, women, and children refugees, right? She's like, I'm not supposed to put one person in front of the other. You know, I'm supposed to look at everybody, not even as humans. She's arguing that there's like no racial bias. She has no political views. She checks those at the door kind of thing. But also she'll say things like, well, I didn't ask them to leave. I didn't ask them to get on a dinghy that isn't supposed to fit that many people. You know, why is it suddenly my problem? Really, really difficult to read. And then, of course, we get the POV of one of the men who is in charge of calling. He's the one whose phone is working, and he is consistently calling her as his boat and all of his companions are sinking and drowning and dying. What was really chilling, though, was the very end, her argument of, like, why she is not the only person at fault was really chilling and really kind of turned the camera on the reader. Yeah, a really difficult read and just generally like infuriating. I think this would be an outstanding audiobook, but I can understand why it got all the hype that it got. Enjoyed isn't the right word, but was very gripping. Will stick with me for a long time, even though it was only 100-something pages. That is Small Boat. Oh gosh, I'm not ready to talk about this book yet. I didn't know we were so close to the end of the month. Okay, we've got 2 more books. Oh my god. Okay, so I'm like literally shaking. I picked up a book that is one of my most anticipated reads of 2026. Came out in January. Everyone I know, people who I trust with my life, their lives have been changed by this book. This might be one of their favorite books ever. Stunning. How is it a debut? Oh my god. Devastated. Can't stop thinking about it. Really, really pushing this book. I fear that this was a case of like expectations were just way too high because this book was perfectly fine. It just did not hit me the way that I really wanted it to. That's the Poet Empress. I will say, as a debut, fantastic. Can't wait to see what else this author puts out. Again, it was just a thing where this was hyped to the high heavens, and no book should ever be hyped to the high heavens because it never quite makes it there. I thought that this actually had a lot lacking. The more that I think about it, I can't tell if it was just my expectations. I'm like butthurt because I wanted to read the best book of the year in January. It was okay. So let me tell you about it. All right. The Poet Empress takes place in a kind of fantastical China, and most of the kingdom is suffering from a famine. And so our main girl is just this normal daughter of a farmer, and she's just seeing everyone in her village die of starvation, right? She's got a little brother, is pretty much only surviving because her dad is giving up half of his rice porridge for dinner every day, even though he's like working the fields and stuff like that. They're all sacrificing everything for the children, and even then the children are hanging on by a thread. So when our main girl learns that the crown prince, the prince who is going to become the emperor, is looking to fill his palace with concubines, she sees an opportunity, because if you are a concubine in the royal palace, you can get gifts, you have power, you can maybe like whisper in some people's ear to be like, hey, could you send some food over to my village? You know, she wants to get in somebody's ear to have her brother get into a school where he can be like fed and educated and have a chance at a good life, things like that. So she's risking it all for the family. And this prince is known to be viciously violent. Just if you forget to bow at the correct angle, he kills you. If you forget to laugh at his joke, kills you. If you do laugh at his joke and he didn't want you to, kills you. A deathly evil prince, okay? But that doesn't matter, right? She would rather die knowing that maybe her family will get some money for her troubles than watch her brother starve. So she somehow kind of like tricks her way into becoming a concubine, and we follow her as she gets to know the prince, who is, deathly evil, tortures her every single night kind of thing. And as she's living in the palace, she's exposed more and more to magic, which doesn't really exist in her village. And magic in this kingdom is performed through poetry. So you have to like write a poem with intention, and then the magic will happen, right? I'm not explaining this well, but you basically write spells, essentially, but they're poems. And our main girl learns about something called a heart spirit poem, which is essentially a killing spell, which would be great. It'd be great if somebody killed this evil man who tortures me every night and is about to become emperor. Wouldn't that be nice? The only problem is, in order to write this killing spell, it needs to be written with both hatred, but also with love. So she needs to find it in her heart to love this seemingly monstrous man. And so she makes it her mission over the course of a year, if not more, to learn everything she possibly can about this prince, how he became to be so evil, so that maybe she can understand him and come to love him and kill him when the time is right. So a lot of this book is actually flashbacks to the prince's childhood. It's very sad and violent, violent in many ways. So there is a content warning in the beginning. I recommend you reading it if you need it. I think because of its graphic scenes, because there is, like I said, many different kinds of violence, I think that it made it be categorized as an adult book. But for me, the characters were very young adult coded. Also, because so much of this was focused on the evil prince and like his backstory and things like that, I felt like even though our main character is supposed to be the hero of our story, I felt like I didn't know much about her. I actually didn't like a lot of the things that she did. And I think that maybe that's part of the message is, you know, the world pushes us to be monstrous. Does that make us monsters? If we do monstrous things, can we ever come back from that? Things like that. I get it, but I wish I understood our main character more. I really left understanding the prince more, but I did think the ending was very clever and very unexpected, and I appreciated that. I just kind of went into it wishing for more poetry or like even more love. In fact, we had very little scenes actually of the prince and our main girl together, other than him torturing her. Yeah, I'm not sure. It just like didn't quite give me anything that I wanted. Like there wasn't a whole lot of magic. There wasn't a whole lot of love. There wasn't a whole lot of building our main character. There wasn't a whole lot of poetry. So I don't know. I fear my expectations were too high. Was it still a solid book if you can stomach like a lot of violent things happening? Absolutely. Again, I thought the ending was really stunning, especially for a debut. Whoa. I just think that my expectations, I thought this was going to be like a 6-star book. It was high middle ground for me. That is the Poet Empress. And last but not least, finished last night. I told you I started on a high note. I ended on a high note. I finally got my greedy little hands on Lord of the Scoundrels. I've been seeing this everywhere. Once again, people I love and trust have been talking about this. This is a romance book from the 90s. And I just remember people saying like, oh, this is like the blueprint for yearning, for enemies to lovers, for, you know, all this stuff. This was so fun. This was so fun. It gave me so many good insults. I was underlining, she was calling people things like, she was like bacon brain. Her little brother is an idiot. There's another character who is very insecure about his physical appearance. And when our main character realizes that, she kind of is like, wow, yeah, I mean, I guess that is true. Men can look in the mirror and really just see something that isn't there. You know, this man thinks he looks hideous. My brother looks in the mirror and thinks he has a brain. She's just constantly dunking on her little brother for being an idiot, and I just really appreciate it. Lord of Scoundrels is about a boy. The prologue is quite long and very important. It's about a boy who is born into a marriage where there is no love. His mom ends up running away, leaving his father, and so his father hates this little boy. He gets sent off to Eton, one of the most prestigious private schools in the UK, where he first gets like bullied and beaten to a pulp every day until he rises above his bullies and becomes just as bad as they are. And so he just like drinks and spends money and goes to the brothel every night. He is generally known as like the devil. Like people call him Beelzebub or like Satan out on the street. Like that's just his nickname. So he is currently living in Paris. He's a lord. He doesn't need to claim his title currently. But he's living in Paris, where he has kind of constructed this society of like French and British aristocrats that have nothing better to do than just spend their money on gambling and going to the brothels. That group includes a man named Bertie, who is the youngest brother of our main character, and she is basically sent over to Paris to collect Bertie before he spends all of the family's money and ruins his life. The only way to get Bertie to agree to come back to the UK is to like separate him from the ringleader of this group, which is the Lord of Scoundrels. His name is Dane. The only trouble is when she tries to face down Dane and be like, give me my brother back, they both immediately fall in lust. And it just unfolds from there. Okay, I don't want to go too far into it because honestly how it unfolds is really funny. I feel like he's very Anthony Bridgerton coded, but worse. Like he's actually like a shitty dude, but he's just like at the brothels, doesn't want to do any work. If you tell him to do one thing, he will automatically try and do the opposite thing, etc. So like not my kind of romantic lead. Also, he is like a huge, massive, beastly person and she's like this tiny, dainty thing. But her body is like the only dainty thing about her. Like she is a badass. She's so intelligent. It's one of those books where like she can walk all over this man. They're just perfectly matched. I think they each try to like get one up on each other, and it's just, there were certain scenes that read exactly like a classic 90s rom-com. Like at one point she throws a slipper at his head and like it's yeah. Overall, I actually had a really good time with it just because of their banter. At first, I wasn't sure because in the beginning, like it was just a lot of like, they talk a lot about like the women of the night, the women of the brothels, and like they don't say very nice things about them. So I was sort of like, I don't know how this is gonna go. Like, how am I ever gonna be on Dane's side? But it actually ended up like ending on a really lovely, funny note. I thought that even the smut was like sort of like what people talk about with heated rivalry of like the smut is part of their journey, like their actual character. There's actually like character building within the sex scenes, and I think that it's the same with Lord of the Scoundrels, where there isn't just like a smut scene for the sake of smut. Like it serves a purpose. It was really fun. I had a great time. It also challenged my vocabulary. Her vocabulary is just like so wonderful. There were so many words that I actually wrote down because I was like, why have I not used this word? Yeah, they were just both really intelligent and truly just like met each other beat for beat, and it was just a really great time. And does Bertie get any brains by the end of it? No, Bertie's still dumb. Okay, so that is Lord of Scoundrels. Highly recommend. And currently this morning, I'm about not even a quarter of the way through, but this morning I started Lost Lambs, which I'm really enjoying so far. It's just about a family that every single family member has something going on. I don't really want to say too much more, but it's like 3 daughters, a husband and wife, a priest, a neighbor. Yeah, I don't know yet, but it starts off with a Catholic church and a priest with an attitude. So I was like, locked in. So that is hopefully going to be my first read, my first finished book of February. We will see. But there you have it. What a strange little month. But I think I found a lot of books that I really liked. I feel like December I was having more misses than hits. But this month, A River Enchanted, A Fire Endless, The Swan's Daughter, Blood on Her Tongue, Gliff, House of Splinters, Small Boat, Lord of Scoundrels, 7 books that I really, really love. A Poet Empress, enjoyed. Not too bad if I don't say so myself. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on those. Let me know what you're currently reading. I have a bit of a dilemma. I downloaded a book that was highly recommended by people. It's a duology fantasy. Tell me why the first book is over 1,000 pages. I think it's illustrated. I haven't actually flipped through the book yet. I'm hoping a lot of those pages are illustrations, but it's a book called Between. I think it has like this cult following. It has amazing reviews. I really want to read it. Has anyone read it? I have it, like it's not a library loan. I don't need to worry about returning it yet, so I'm not sure when I want to start it. If you've read it, let me know. Do I need to set aside an entire month to get through this book? What are your thoughts? Will it be worth my time before I dive in and devote way too much time to it? That being said, as always, I'm about to get on a flight. Leave me your rom-com recommendations. I will be flying 2 back-to-back very long flights and would appreciate the help. So yeah, there you have it. Not a bad beginning. And I will see you in February. What do I have? Do I have anything really like coming your way? I'm gonna try and read another thriller for you. So if you're interested in that, I will try and post either here or on Instagram or something like that. Some people requested that I tell you what the book is beforehand so that you can read it as well before my video so that you can see if we figured it out together kind of thing. So I'll try and give you that information first. But yeah, I will be in the US, bopping around and hopefully going to some used bookstores and things like that. So I might be doing a little vlogging, which I haven't done in a while on this channel. Yeah, going to maybe some book events and things like that. So very excited for February. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all safe. I hope you are all paying attention to your community and doing what you can to be there to support them, especially if you live in the US right now, and sending you all love as always. So I will catch you next time, and I hope February continues the good reads. Okay? See you then.